First of all, learn about what corals are. Why is so important that right now, in these few years, I'm talking to you from here to 2050, is going to be decided the future of the reefs. From
Yeah,
here to 2050, you
yeah.
know? And if we have lost already 80% of the corals in Cozumel, we have lost species that we will not have back. And even if we have them back, those corals are going to take a long time to grow. But if we learn about how and what can we do, like for example, when they come over here and they plant a coral, they're doing something. When they come over here and they help us by cleaning the algae that it is killing the corals, they're doing something. So then it's a purpose.
Welcome to Global Goodness, where I'm your host, Kim Hunt. In a world inundated with troubling headlines, this podcast offers a refreshing perspective. Join us for inspiring interviews with people from across the globe who are spearheading remarkable projects dedicated to improving both humanity and our planet. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Global Goodness, the podcast where we travel the world through stories of people making a difference for our planet. Today, we're diving into the crystal clear waters of Cozumel, Mexico, to explore an inspiring underwater mission, the Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration Program. Here to some of the most beautiful and threatened reefs on Earth, Cozumel faces mounting challenges from tourism, pollution, and climate change. Joining us is coral reef conservationist Dr. Mendez, president of the nonprofit leading this vital work. From coral fragmentation to reef education and policy reform, Mendez shares the science, struggles, and hope behind their fight to save this precious marine ecosystem. Before we dive into this episode, just a quick heads up. You'll hear some dogs barking in the background during part of the interview. Dr. Mendez lives in the jungle, and his dogs were reacting to some kind of wild visitor nearby. That said, Dr. Mendez shares incredibly valuable insights about the coral reefs in Cozumel, and I really want you to all hear what he has to say. So stick with us. It's worth it. For listeners, can you introduce yourself and your role in the Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration System, and just explain a little bit about Cozumel, where it is for our listeners, sort of the origin stories, if you will, before we kind of get down into the nitty-gritty of everything that you're working on.
Sure. Well, my name is Germán Mendez. I've been living on the island for several years, well, 40. But the thing is that I came here from Mexico City. I came here to learn how to dive. And when I put the mask and I went into the water, I never went back home. I stayed here. And since then, I started being a diver and working in the dive industry and everything else. But unfortunately, even though that I took all the courses that they are, in not one single one of them, they told me what it was a coral. And in 1994, for the first time, we had our first confrontation with the cruise ship industry. That's when they put the first big pier. And because of that pier, we were doing marches in the street saying, don't put the pier there. We know how many corals are there. But my background is that when I was in Mexico City, I'm a veterinarian. That's what I did. I went to school to become a veterinarian, and I was working with cats and dogs. And I came just here on vacations. But then I leave the veterinary medicine and I kept more into the diving. But when it came that part, then that's what they were saying. But you're just a veterinarian. You really don't know anything about corals. So I decided to go to United States, to go to Florida and study to become a marine biologist. So I went to school, Nova Southeastern University. I did my master's, and I specialized in corals, like working with all the people that they were working with corals, and trying to bring or seeing how I could put together the two things, to put together the diving with the coral, but in the real truth of the matter. So what we did is that we did a nonprofit in 2013 that it was called Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration. And through that, what we do is that we give courses to the people that are already scuba diving certified, and then we give them a course of coral reef conservation where they work with us in the farms. We have now 35 platforms with corals, so I cannot maintain them all. So all the people that they take the course, they take a course of 2 days. They do 4 dives, and then they become volunteers, permanent volunteers. So whenever they're in Cozumel, they come and they help us. And now we teach them about what the corals are, how they eat, how they grow, everything else. And then we teach them how to identify the species of corals. And then they learn how to handle the corals on the water so that they can be able to do a planting of the coral. And it's like getting a little bit of a sense of ownership of the reef, because it's your coral that you planted, that you
Yeah.
want to see it thrive. And that's one thing that makes them be more open. And then because they have been learning about what corals, the kind of species of corals that we're looking for, whenever they go dive into the marine park, now they are our eyes. They can tell us if they are looking for the species that we lost in 2018, if they look good, where they are. And then from there, we can do rescue of those species. And then we can bring them to the nursery and try to thrive them again. So there is a lot of things, but mostly what we're trying to do is that from all what I have learned during these years, from the two things that I have done, put them together so that in that way we could get better divers that can be more savvy in their decisions and why is that they are divers at the end of the day. This is like diving with a purpose. And once you start doing that, you completely change. We have people that they come and that they have never dove, they do the open water course, but immediately we give them the other course. And then from there on, they stay with us a couple of months, just working every day, going over there, cleaning the platforms, counting fish, and it is a great experience because now you are learning, you are seeing that you have seen all these years, but that you really didn't know what you were looking at, and you're seeing it with a different vision.
That is so cool because being diving underwater and snorkeling is such a magical experience. But like you said, you don't really know what you're looking at. You can take so much ownership over it when you're planting a coral or learning about what you're looking at. And for our listeners, can you explain to them what coral is and why it's so important to the ecosystem of the ocean?
Corals are animals. They are from the family called cnidarians, that they are from the same family as the jellyfish and the anemones, incredibly. Because all of them, what they have in common is that they have stinging cells in their tentacles that they use to capture their prey. However, the coral cannot swim. The coral, from the moment that it's born, it's called a polyp. That's the little animal that makes the coral. The coral is a lot of polyps together, and those polyps that they form the coral, they make a reef, and a lot of reefs, they make a barrier reef. And that's why we are in the Mesoamerican barrier reef here in Cozumel, that it comes all the way from the country of Honduras, and it goes coasting from Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, and Mexico.
Okay, I just want to hop in and say this is where the dog barking started to get a little loud, but Dr. Herman has some really great information to share. So I'm going to take a few minutes and summarize what he was talking about while this was happening. The Cozumel Coral Reef, located off the coast of Mexico, is part of the Mesoamerican Barrier Reef System, the fourth largest barrier reef in the world. This vibrant underwater ecosystem is not only visually stunning, but ecologically essential. Coral reefs, like the one in Cozumel, provide shelter, breeding grounds, and protection for a vast array of marine life. In fact, about 1/4 of all fish in the ocean rely on coral reefs at some stage in their life cycle. Coral reefs grow at an incredibly slow pace, about 1 centimeter per year. This means that a coral formation seen today could be between 800 to 1,000 years old. Unfortunately, this slow growth makes them highly vulnerable. A single harmful algae bloom or bleaching event could wipe out centuries of growth in just a matter of weeks. And with current environmental trends, those reefs might not recover for generations, if ever. Around the world, it's estimated that we've already lost about 80% of coral reefs. If this continues, we're not just losing beautiful ecosystems, we're also endangering a food source that supports roughly 1 billion people globally. A major issue is awareness. As Herman puts it, if people don't know what coral is, how can we save it? He compares the experience of diving in Cozumel decades ago to stepping into the world of Avatar, a vibrant alien world teeming with life. Now that magical underwater environment has been deeply degraded with fewer fish and dying coral. But hope isn't lost. Coral restoration efforts are underway in Cozumel, mainly through a process called fragmentation. Tourists often unintentionally break coral with their fins. Normally, these broken pieces would die if they fell into the sand. However, Herman and his team collect them and place them in underwater nurseries where up to 3,000 coral fragments can be cared for in a controlled environment. These fragments are planted using PVC structures or special underwater epoxy to secure them onto artificial metal or concrete bases or even algae-covered coral rocks. One of the ways to measure the success of these restorations is by counting fish species. While Cozumel should ideally support around 350 species of fish, divers only often see about 50 on a typical day. After coral restoration, that number can rise to 150 simply by helping the coral survive and thrive. Coral reproduction efforts also take place in labs during peak spawning months, July to September, where coral gametes are collected and cultivated for later reintroduction. Despite these efforts, major threats continue to challenge coral survival. Rising ocean temperatures cause coral bleaching, while ocean acidification makes it harder for corals to build their calcium-based skeletons. Pollution, too, plays a significant role, spreading diseases that can rapidly destroy entire reef sections. And as you will hear later on, the construction of yet another cruise ship pier at Cozumel will cause more disruption to the already very fragile coral reefs. Let's hop back in. Were you out on the water today?
Yeah, we were today in the water. Basically, it is the time when we are preparing the corals. The thing is this, that right now where we have the nursery, there are plans to build a port, a pier. So we are seeing how they are putting all this like pipes where I think that they are going to put the dikes, something like that, very close to where we are. So it's about 20 meters from our nurseries. And up until now, they haven't started with the machines. They are just putting the pipes. I think that so where they are going to be putting the structures afterwards. But meantime, we have to go and play by day, because they're not going to finish the pier in 2 or 3 years. We fought against avoiding that pier to be there because it was an area that was going to be a conservation area outside of the marine park, but it had some platforms that they were put by the University of Quintana Roo, that is a university here in Cozumel.
Right.
They put those platforms, and then since 2017, we start planting corals on them. So people can be able to come and see the corals. They are like ornate platforms because unfortunately in that area since before, because of, when you have a lot of tourism in a place, Cozumel always has been a beautiful place because of the corals they have. The southwest part of the island is where the biggest concentrations of coral reefs were because they were protected from the southeast winds. And that's where the water was calmer with good current. So corals thrive there. But the problem is that since 1994, the vocation of Cozumel changed from being a diving destination to be a cruise ship destination. And at the beginning, it was one pier, then it was two, now they are three. That means 7 ships a day.
Oh,
and now they are building another pier for another 7 ships. So that's going to be 14 ships a day on an island that is only 45 miles long and 8 miles wide. And that's in detriment of the corals because where they are building is this in front of where the marine park is. And if you don't have good water quality, then you cannot have corals that they can be successful. And that's one of our biggest challenges, that the island has gotten to the point where our capacity is being far gone, being passed by. But now with this new construction of piers, of condominiums and everything else, it is going to be devastating for Cozumel. The problem is since the beginning, we only have one treatment plant for the whole island, and it's completely obsolete. It was done in 1982, something like that. So it is a plan that now it was done for 25,000 people. Now in Cozumel, they are over 150,000 people. And that's not without counting the people that now they're coming for all the constructions they're doing. They're building condominium after condominium. There are about 40 condominiums right now that they are doing on the island, and hotels and new projects and new marinas and the island is not going to be bigger. It's not going to change. And if you don't take the precautions to get all that amount of development, like the precautions of having a real treatment plant, a real sewage system, a control, and environmentally an island that has had to have parts that they can be protected and not just selling everything like there was no tomorrow. And right now, that's the biggest problem that we have. The coral reefs are there, but they have a lot of pressure from all this, because the thing is this: there have been problems before that. They are, for example, 2005, we had the hurricanes. 2018, we had a disease that it was devastating for Cozumel. It was a white syndrome disease, and that one killed about 50% of the corals. In a normal environment where you have a devastation like that happening, that it is not normal, but now nothing is normal. We are in a climate change times where all kinds of things are happening. But in that case, if the water quality is okay, then the corals that they survived, that they were not affected by that disease, would have covered the places where the corals were no longer there. However, because of the quality of the water, because now there are 52 beach clubs in front of the marine park and 103 septic tanks, and there's no sewage, then everything goes into the water. And when it goes into the water, it goes directly into the corals. So from 2018, we had that devastation. And instead of having the time to recover, they were covered by algae. So now, when you had the 2023 first bleaching event, that it was also devastating, then the corals didn't have time to prepare, because they were only 5 years. And corals, they grow 1 centimeter a year. So we lost a lot in between those two. And then 2024, it comes back against the bleaching. And now we don't even know what is going to happen in 25.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that it's getting really dry here, that it's going to increase the temperature. Since last year, what we did is that we receive students that they come and they help us. They do their social service and they do some research. So we had one of them, a good guy, that he came out with the idea of putting covers on top of the corals, putting shades, and then we tried to see which the shade that it was better, in the sense of providing the corals with the protection that they needed, but not so much that they wouldn't be able to get the nutrients that they need through the zooxanthellae. So we went with 70%, and all the corals that we were able to cover, they survived to that 2024. So this time we were more prepared. The island at the beginning has always been a diving island, place where the people were coming, and you become an open water diver. You're going to go and dive in the Caribbean or in Australia or in Southeast Asia or wherever there is a common denominator, that it's called corals and fish and colors and warm water and the beach and everything. So that's what we relate with that diving. The problem is that those places, when we go as divers, they taught us, they teach us how to dive, but they never told us what it was, a coral. They just teach you how to dive, how to use a tool. Wherever you use it, that's your problem. But most of the people, they don't go diving to Hudson River and they don't go diving to Lake Travis unless they're training. They want to go to the Caribbean, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, Cozumel, you name it. But that's where they go. Here in Cozumel, we have 227 dive stores on an island that it is only 45 miles long and 8 miles wide. So they move 3,000 divers a day.
Wow.
Although that when they go diving, they really don't know what they're looking. They don't know if they're looking at corals, they're looking at sponges, or they are looking at algae. They mostly want to see if there is a shark or if there is a stingray or if there is something big, that they can say, oh, what a memorable dive. But we don't really pay attention to the real essence of the reef because we don't even know what a coral is. So we
Yeah.
become a problem for the reef. And those are the people that they sell them. Oh, you're a diver? Well, we'll send you a condominium in front of Palanca Reef. 5 minutes every day you can go diving. But they don't tell you that your sewage is going to be there with you. And
No.
that's the
Yeah.
problem because you are building the condominium in front of the reef. And if not, they can ask Florida because that's how it happened in Florida. All the area. I dove in Florida. I went to school in Florida. And I was diving from Palm Beach all the way to the Keys. And everywhere. You go in front of Miami and there are some decent reefs, but everything is real estate and
So
nothing is protected.
when I was snorkeling in Cozumel, there was a massive cruise ship sitting in the terminal, and you said, how many terminals are there?
Right now there are three.
Three, which is already crazy because that island, your island is not that big.
No.
And so I guess one of the things I was thinking of is if this is happening and they're trying to get permits, you know, we don't want them to get more permits because they're already destroying the coral. But is there any financial kickback they're giving you at all to try and rebuild these reefs? Or is there any sort of help that they're giving you at all? Or no, they're just, this is what we're doing. Let's get rid of the coral guys so we can just build our projects and make money.
Well, there is not, what we're thinking is that luckily our corals are movable because we have them on top of grids.
Yeah.
And actually, we can move them from the place. But it's not the point. Yeah, we will save those corals, but everything else is going to be. That's why I'm telling you that the thing is that the biggest problem, it is the same greed of humans in that sense, that for them, it's more important to make the money than to preserve a reef. And
This
on
makes,
an island,
yeah, makes me so
yeah,
upset. How do
yeah,
we stop this?
it is. But the thing is this: think about it. Right now, we have three terminals. They
Yeah.
can put 7 ships a day. Okay, 227 dive stores. They move 3,000 divers a day. That is what it comes in one cruise ship. That's nothing. Peanuts for these people. They want the big money. So they say, what do? I keep a reef for 3,000 divers, or I ring the doors of the panacea by bringing as many ships as I can. So right now, they can park 7 ships in one day, among them the biggest ships of the world. There can be days where we can have 50,000 people in one single day, besides the 150,000 people that they live on the island. So
Wow.
that, okay, well, that you say, well, that's exaggeration. Yes, it is, but that's nothing. Right now, this pier that they want to do is for 7 more cruise ships.
So, what do
For
the
7 more.
scuba shops think? Because in a few years, if this keeps happening, all the reefs will be destroyed and there won't be business for the scuba shops because the reefs will be dead. Is
Exactly.
there thinking beyond, I mean, just what is the how what am I trying to say? Are you getting support from the community of Cozumel? It seems like, I live in a resort town. I live in a ski town. So I get that we need tourism to have our livelihood, but there also has to be a push and pull over what is too much for the town to handle and how to do it sustainably so you can do it for the long term, not just have a good time now and everything's destroyed in 20 years. How does the town support you, or what is that like?
Environmentally, in, I don't know, maybe in Canada it's better, but here is not.
Hmm.
Environmentally, right now, they haven't paid attention in the last 7 years, 8 years. It has been, oh, let's make a Mayan train. Oh, let's make a new refinery. Oh, let's make another train here. Oh, we're gonna build houses here. But they don't mention environment. They don't mention we're gonna protect this, we're gonna protect that, we're gonna protect all the jaguars that they're gonna be hit by the Mayan train. We're gonna protect the reefs. No, what they say is economy, economy, economy. And then we come to that point. Okay, what is the minimum wage in Mexico? Are they going to make more because they put more ships? And no, the minimum wage in Mexico right now, it is $14 a day. So, with $14 a day, you cannot even go, well, you can go to McDonald's and get, and maybe a milkshake. But that's it. Is that what you're going to take to your children at home? No. So they're not worried if the reef is there or not. And what they tell them is, don't worry. The more people are going to come, the more money you're going to make. But we're going to still pay you the $14. You're going to get the money from tips. Oh, great. Yeah. So that's how they sell them to them. And then they say the more tourism you have, the more money you have, because now you're going to be begging more, because now you're going to get more tips. But we're going to pay you more. We're going to still get the big money for all the people that we are making the condominiums, that we're making the beach clubs, that we're making the money. Because without us, you wouldn't have anything. Yeah, now you don't have beaches. Now you don't have jungle. Now you don't have good water. Now you have no legacy for your future generations. And that's what happened. This island has been inhabited for 3,000 years. And it was inhabited by the Mayans. And those people, they had a population of 50,000 people during that time. And their legacy was not to see how much money you were going to leave in the bank for your children. What they were doing is that legacy was the island, was the jungle, was the reefs. And because of that, when they died, they said, yes, son, here it is, your jungle. Here it is, your reef. And do the same and pass it to your children too, the same way that we're passing it to you. That stopped. Now it is in half of a generation that it is since the moment that I got here in 1980, and maybe they started in 1960. In half of a generation, they have destroyed half of the island. Half of the island. So that's the legacy for the next generations. Half of the island. 80% less corals. That when it comes a hurricane, there's going to be 80% less protection. But they don't think of that. They say, more condominiums, the more money, the more we're all going to have. But the island is still 45 miles long and 8 miles wide. So, it's a problem that happens in all these islands. The cruise ship industry has been terrible in that sense. They don't pay attention to the damage that they do to the places where they lock in, and they destroy them up until there's nothing on the island. I can't believe how many 7-Elevens are now here. I can't believe it.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. And you go to Bahamas, and it's the same. And you go to Miami, and it's the same. So now there's no difference. Our culture is being disseminated in between the oblivion of the Caribbean, so that everybody has the same, because they all come in ships. And the diseases, we have the disease that came here in 2018, that it came and destroyed half of the reefs in Cozumel. It came from Florida. And you wonder, how can it have come from Florida if the current goes from Cozumel to Florida? And it didn't. What happens is that the ships, they have ballasts. And all the water that they collect in Miami, they dump it in Florida, in Cozumel. And that's how we got the disease. That's how we got the lionfish. And about 3 or 4 months ago, we even had Portuguese men of war that I had never seen in Cozumel. Now, they were Portuguese men of war in front of the beach where I work.
Okay, so wait a minute. When I went diving, it was just across from Cozumel by Playa del Carmen. I did see a lionfish. So that is not natural to the area.
No, the lionfish are from Southeast Asia. And the lionfish, the way that they got into the Caribbean is because I was living in Miami when that happened, but in 2008, over there's a lot of places that they sell you fish, like reef fish, and they make you an aquarium and everything else, these fish stores. Well, they love to sell the lionfish. So they bring them from Indonesia. And one guy, he had his lionfish, and the story says that he was going to change of house. that he couldn't take his fish. So he says, I'm gonna be so please, I'm gonna let you go, like, like butterflies. And he put them in Florida, and suddenly, boom, everything exploded. So up until
Wow.
2008, there was not a single fish in all that area. And by 2010, it was completely covered. And then from there again, the currents in the northern hemisphere, they go clockwise. So the current goes from Cozumel to Miami. And then from there it goes to the Arctic, and then from there it goes to the other side of the Atlantic, and then it goes to the Caribbean. So it's impossible that something can come with the current to Cozumel just because they came like, oh yeah, 500 kilometers, I can swim that, no problem. The only way that they can swim against the current is if they come in the ballast of the ships. So
Wow.
those are the kind of things that they have happened, all the big changes that they happen in Cozumel. The first nail in the coffin of Cozumel was the first pier for the cruise ships that they put.
Yeah.
Now they want to put the fourth nail in the coffin by making this humongous pier that it is going to duplicate the amount of cruise ships that they can receive in one day. And that's not all. They want to do an extension of the pier of 1994, where they can park the biggest ships of the world. So at the end of the day, in 4 years, their plan is that they're gonna stop in Cozumel between 14 to 16 ships in one day. That means that if among everything, you're talking about over 100,000 people a day. This is gonna be like Disney World. We're not gonna be able to walk in the streets. And and on top of everything, guess what? We have no water because we have no rivers, we have no lakes. Everything it is from the rain. So, but now because those new neighborhoods that they are doing in the middle of the jungle are not connected to the sewage, now they are pumping that into the phreatic level. So it is a mess. And everything is just like so hidden so that you can have a beautiful beach where you have coconut trees that they're not even from the Caribbean. Yeah, we relate, we think that the coconuts they belong, but no, they are from the meridional, they are from the belt of the equator. So there are coconuts everywhere, but the real coconut trees of Cozumel, they don't exist. They were all imported. And when the
What?
coconut tree, yeah,
They're all over.
they're all over now. Back in
Wow.
the day, when I got to the island in 1982, everything, all the south that now is covered with condominiums, it was covered with coconut trees because there were plantations of coconuts. And in 1983, it came a disease that is called the yellow syndrome disease, that it affected all the coconuts. It killed all the coconuts of Florida. It killed all the coconuts of the Caribbean. And then in their infinitive wisdom, they said, oh, the people needs to see coconuts. So we don't have any more coconuts because they all die with the disease. So where do they have coconuts? Oh, Sumatra. So they brought the coconuts. The yellow coconuts are from Sumatra. So yeah, they are
Wow.
not here.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So besides the cruise ships, because we don't like the cruise ships coming, but I want to ask you about tourism with snorkeling and scuba diving. So you came to Cozumel to scuba diving, never left, fell in love with it. And, that's one of the reasons why so many people love Cozumel, but it's being over touristed. So if we put the cruise ships aside, like I took a ferry over to Cozumel, went with a snorkeling company. Is that helping or is it harming? Is it really like we should be thinking twice and not doing that and just saying, Coral, we need to take a break on you. Let's
What we
let
have
you.
to do is
Yeah.
that we have to know what corals are.
Yeah.
Not only so that we can enjoy them better when we go and see them and know what we're looking at,
Yeah.
because then we would know what is harmful and what is not. The same tour operators, they would be more environmentally oriented.
Yeah.
They should do, we have 227 dive stores in Cozumel. How many out of them are working in coral reef restoration? One. So how can it be that all the other divers, what do? Just go and blow bubbles? Go and see the reef? What really is what they do? Are they diving with a purpose? or they just pay $120 to go make 2 tanks and try to see if they see a manta ray, but not knowing if they are looking or what they are looking, that they can give us a report where they can be able to know, oh, by the way, I thought that those were corals, but no, they're sponges. So, okay, now I know that I'm looking sponges. Are those good for the coral reef or not? Am I seeing less fish or not? To start like understanding, to bring that puzzle. So what we have to do is that it's not that we don't come and give them a break. Do you know what they do here, for example? They say, oh, we give the reefs 1 month of break during the year. So then you can go dive into, there's like about 10 different sites where you can go, but then in a month, you cannot go to one site. So they are giving it a break. So that means that that coral is going to have a time to grow 1/10 of their size for a month that nobody's going to kick them, you know?
Yeah.
That's not enough. So it has to be more than that. What it has to be done is that everybody should be more environmentally oriented in the sense of, okay, I need to know what is what I am looking at. I need to know what corals are, why is that they are here, what is the effect that I have on them, how can I be able to maintain this so that my children can see it. If I buy a condominium that it's in front of Palancar, I know that it's not going to be that what is going to allow that coral to thrive. But if I stay in town, then in that way, I leave the place where the corals are, and they're not going to have the pressure that we're putting them by putting all this development in front. And the problem is that we do have a marine park, but the marine park only protects the water. It doesn't protect the land.
So along the marine park, I do remember a boat took us snorkeling and we went on a boat past a whole bunch of hotels and resorts. Is that part of the marine park because they're not actually on the water?
Yes, everything is in
Right.
the marine park. Up until the time that I went to school, 1994, before that's why the thing is this, when they say we're gonna put a pier for cruise ships, that's why we say that's the nail of the coffin, because it's not the pier itself. The pier is very destructive. You cannot imagine how much coral they have to devastate just to make that structure. But then what are you gonna do with the people that they come out of the ships? They all want to go to the beach. And where are the beaches? They are in front of the marine park, where, and that's another thing, where the sand is, corals don't grow. Sand and coral don't get along. That's why when you go to those beaches in the south, for you to get to the reef, you have to swim like about 100 meters out in open water so that you can get to the first reef. But that doesn't matter for the nutrients or for the sewage that can be coming from those places, you
Right.
know? So the thing is that that's what they look for the beaches. And because the only places of all Cozumel where you can have like about 10 kilometers of beaches, one after another, it is in the south in front of the marine park. So that's why we have, up until 2018, 52 beach clubs in front of the marine park and 103 septic tanks in front of the marine park.
Oh
And
God.
no sewage, no pipes that they go from there to the only treatment plant that doesn't work, where the water just pours into the other side and it goes to supposedly a protected area. So that's the thing. When we're tourists that we come to the island, we don't see what it is the effect of what we do. It's
Yeah.
not our fault, but because nobody told us. But imagine when you see it in these huge scales, you know, and when you have 40,000 people a day that they come out of the ships, that the only thing they do is stay here, they go to a beach club, and at 5 o'clock they have to be back in the ship. So the only ones that they make money are going to be the taxi drivers, the people that they are living, that they work in those beach clubs, and they're going to make whatever they make of tips. Who really is going to make the money is the owner of the beach club.
Yeah.
Those the money stays, you
Yeah.
know. Those are the ones that they are the investors, the ones that they forgot to put the treatment plant, the ones that
Mhm.
do artificial beaches. Oops, my God, but I'm giving you a job. Yeah, but you're killing the island. Can't you do both? Can you maintain the island and at the same time give me a job? That's the kind of things. But the greediness, is that how much money I can have before I die. That's what they think. Because imagine the people that they are doing those piers, how much money they are gonna make. And what are
Yeah.
they gonna take it all with them? Are they gonna put it in a bank? They're gonna sleep one side of their bed with it? They're gonna invest it in other things? And then at the end, when you get to the end of your life, what are you gonna do with that money? Oh, I'm gonna give it to my children. Why don't you left them the reef instead of the money? The money can be depreciated. It can burn. It's just a piece of paper. You're changing nothing for the real richness that we have. That is our nature.
That is our nature. And it's so depressing hearing that because you're so right. I want to come down there and be like, okay, how do we create programs that like every dive school, that everyone going through dive school has to learn about the reefs and the coral and how do we how do we create an environmentally sound government that cares about the environment, not just making money?
That's the thing,
That is
and it
the
happens
thing.
everywhere, and it's a problem. And the thing is that now we are running out of time, and
Yeah.
we're running out of reefs. Right now, in 40 years, we have lost 80% of the reefs of Cozumel, and that's without two piers that they're planning to do in the next 2 years. So, what reefs are we gonna have left? And then they say, "Don't worry, you are all gonna go and plant reefs." Where do we plant them? If everywhere that we can plant reefs, they are putting hotels, and then it's a problem. It's a nuisance to have the reefs because if not, they cannot get the permit or they cannot have their sewage or anything. It affects them to have the reef. Right now, for example, where we are, that it was an area that we have been restoring for 6, 7 years because they decided that they're going to put the pier there. Then the corals, they were a bother. And then how can you get rid of the corals? Very easy. You open the sewage of a condominium and you let the water go. And since the moment that they started doing that plan of making that pier, suddenly, mysteriously, everything started getting covered with algae, the place where we are.
Yeah.
And then
That's
again, so humans are not allowing to plant corals because it goes against their interests.
yeah.
Go figure. Where is our intelligence and
Where
our
is
smartness?
where
We're
is it?
killing the only planet that we can know that can sustain life. And we think that we're the smartest things in the planet.
And
It's
sometimes
ironic.
we're
It's
sometimes
ironic.
we're so stupid. We need to just be smarter.
Hmm.
Switching gears, let's talk about something a little more positive.
Sure.
Is there a particular success story or moment that has stayed with you personally?
Yeah, well, uh, more than anything else is being that we have been successful in doing planting in the sense that we have seen places that we started with the first one that we did was in 2013 and we started with 98 corals and with those 98 corals we were able to restore about 100 square meters because from those once were growing we were able to break another little piece and then we make a little nice reef and that was up until 2018 that it came the disease. So you have those flares of wholeness and everything else, seeing how beautiful they come. You count your fish and you say, wow, this is happening. And then suddenly, bang, it comes a disease and it kills you everything. And you have to start from scratch again. And then suddenly you have gotten to the point where, okay, you save some of the corals from the disease that you know that they will survive for the next disease and bang, suddenly comes 2023, and all your corals they go white because of the temperature, because of the global warming that is not even recognized by some governments. And that's the problem. And how do we go and turn off the light? How do we go and turn off the temperature of the water of the earth? And so there you go. So now again, another back down. But then we come and we came out with the shades, and the shades help our corals. Now we see them growing and everything is okay, and we're getting ready for the next one. But then we're getting ready for the next one. We were able to survive to that, and suddenly now we have a barge in front of the place that they are starting to put a pier. And now what do you do? So yeah, we have a lot of glorious moments, but oh my God, the falls are terrible.
The
And
falls are
sometimes it's
terrible.
like, and we don't lose hope. We keep on working. I'm not gonna stop planting corals up until the day I die. But I hope that people can understand that why we're doing it. Because if not, think about the children. At least give them the chance to decide and not just kill it, not even knowing what they're killing.
So, Herman, for people around the world who want to help coral reefs, what actions can they take, whether or not they live near the ocean or inland?
First of all, learn about what corals are.
Hmm.
Why is so important that right now, in these few years, I'm talking to you from here to 2050, is going to be decided the future of the reefs. From
Yeah.
here to 2050, you
Yeah.
know? And if we have lost already 80% of the corals in Cozumel, we have lost species that we will not have back. And even if we have them back, those corals are going to take a long time to grow. But if we learn about how and what can we do, like for example, when they come over here and they plant a coral, they're doing something. When they come over here and they help us by cleaning the algae that it is killing the corals, they're doing something. So then it's a purpose. So in this case, not everybody can do that, granted, because you're not here. But at the end of the day, if we know about the current situation of coral reefs, first of all, what coral reefs are, just like why they're so important, why do they talk so much about them, what kind of animals they live there. I know that they live in the middle of a mountain, but I want to know because even if I live in the Caribbean, I want to know what's happening in Vancouver, because I want to know. I want to know if there are really those big octopus that they say that they live there. So those are the kind of things that I don't want them just to be a legend, that I try to learn about those things, even if I am not there. And they can do
Yeah.
this. And in that way, they can help us and prepare the future generations. Maybe they don't travel that much, but maybe the children, they will. And if they
Yeah.
know where they're going to go and why they have to preserve them, you are making something. But if we don't do anything, they're just going to die in front of us, like all the 22 species that die a day that we're losing in the whole world. Species of animals that we don't even knew that they were existing. And now we won't see them again, you know?
Yeah.
So we have to learn. We have to learn how to live with nature in the sense of learning about it and not just thinking that everything it is just what it is, where we live and everything. We have to be more according with what we have lost, because now without the phone and without a car, we feel miserable. And 100 years ago, there was not even electricity,
Yeah.
you know. So it's ridiculous that in such a short time we have become so weak. But then we have to have the strength that has made us what we are, and at the same time to try to get the best from us and realize to become humble again, to know that we depend on nature, that not nature depends on us. And if we don't change that, then we cannot have a future, you know?
Yeah. Those are beautiful closing words as we're coming. Actually, we're over now, but coming to the hour. I do have a fun question for you, Herman. Do you have a favorite coral, a coral species?
Well, the one that has always been like the attraction has been the acropora or the elkhorn coral. Elkhorn coral was a coral that it was all over the place. It's the one that back in the day, many, many years ago, maybe in reruns, you can see it. There was a program that was called Flipper, and it was filming in the Florida Keys. And there was this dolphin that was always working with a game warden or something like that.
I remember.
It was always swimming on top of the Elkhorn corals, and they were beautiful. You cannot imagine. And in 1979, it was the most common coral in all the Caribbean and in Florida. And in 1989, it came a disease that it killed them, or 1979, that killed them all. And now they went into the endangered species. But I even remember that when I was in school over there in Florida, I had
Hmm.
to go and make a map of all the acroporas in the middle of in between Port Everglades and a place called Hillsborough Inlet. So the acropora has always been with me because of that. Then when I came here to Cozumel, we did the map of all the acroporas that we had on the west side. And now what we do is that we have a nursery that we have of baby acroporas. So yeah, the acropora would be the one. Although that there are other corals I would love to, pillar coral, but this one is a coral that it's the only one that can grow 2 centimeters a year instead of just one.
So it's
So
like the superpower coral.
yeah, it's a super coral. But then again, it needs that care. It needs quality of water. It
Mhm.
needs the care that if you're gonna be swimming around it, it's not gonna be broken. But mostly it needs the care. And I think that we all can give that care to the little bit of corals that we have left if we know what we're looking at instead of thinking that it's just a rock with colors, where the fish are just passing by.
Yeah. How can listeners support or follow your work?
We have a page that it is called ccrrp.mx, and that's we're also in Facebook as Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration, and in Instagram, and that's it. But yeah, you can follow what we do. We have a newsletter and everything else, and we try to put update of whatever. Right now we have just recently put a new substrate, another reef that it is all made of sargassum, that it is big, where we're planting corals, and we're gonna see how that works. And we have another one that is a pyramid that we have connected electricity, so that the electricity, that's called biorock. So it's a little bit of electricity. Don't think that it is like sparkling, but what it does is that it attracts the calcium carbonate, it attaches it to the structure, and then on top of that, we can plant corals. So you can make different shapes, like in
Oh,
this case,
wow.
pyramid. But yeah, and then in the pyramid you put the corals and everything else, and you make a reef. You know, so it's cool, and that's one way that we are making them grow. But also, we are making the main thing that the coral is for, that it is to make those structures where the fish and other animals can hide, and that they
Yeah.
can thrive and make that other fish grow. That's why if you protect the reefs, then you can protect the whole kind of beginning of where fisheries start. That's why they want to make like marine parks, but marine parks that they are not only protected from fishing, but they have to be also protected from water quality and from overdevelopment and everything else. Everything can work. We can do development and we can do everything if we do it rationally. We
Yeah.
have to know how to use our natural resources in a rational way, but sometimes greed is more powerful, and all these people, they think that they need more than they really need, and at the end of the day it's like hoarding for something that they're not going to take with them, and at the end of the day they don't care what damage they leave here for the next generations when they don't find what there was there, and you say, oh, I remember Cozumel when it had corals. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. Well, thank you for all the work that you do and dedicating your life to restoring the coral in Cozumel and just bringing education and light to the situation down there. And with that, bringing light to the issue and the devastation of coral around the world, that this is not just something that's happening, like it is something happening right now. And like you said, by 2050, we might not have coral anymore. So, everyone who's listening, learn about coral, do your homework. Let's write letters to the government. Let's stop intense amounts of cruise ships coming to our beautiful places. Let's learn how to do tourism sustainably so we can enjoy our beautiful planet and not destroy it.
exactly. The answers are with us. We are the ones who, and that's one of the things, we are destructive and we can destroy the reefs, but we also can build the reefs. And that's what we're doing. Through the Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration, the same people are humans are building a reef. The others are destroying it, but we're teaching that we can make the difference and humans can do it. Humans can break it, but humans can put it back.
I love that. Well, hopefully if I get back down to Mexico next year, we'll come on, we'll take the ferry across and my kids and I will pop by and we'll say hi.
Excellent. You're more than welcome.
Thank you. All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
That's it for today's journey beneath the waves. As we've heard from Dr. Germán Mendez, Cozumel's coral reefs are more than just a stunning natural wonder. They're vital ecosystems teeming with life and resilience. Despite the mounting pressures from unchecked tourism, pollution, and climate change, Dr. Mendez and his team continue to fight for their survival through hands-on restoration, education, and advocacy. But they can't do it alone, and now you can help. Take a moment to sign the petition calling on the Mexican government to halt the expansion of Cozumel's international cruise ship pier, a project that poses a serious threat to an already fragile coral ecosystem. You can find the petition at change.org or in the show notes. To learn more about the Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration Program and how to support their work, visit their website at www.ccrrp.mx. You can also follow them on social media for updates, volunteer stories, and marine science education. On Instagram at Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration, on Facebook, Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration Program. Thank you for joining us on Global Goodness, where we spotlight the people protecting our planet. Until next time, keep seeking the good, speaking up for nature, and making waves wherever you are.